During my nephew's massage, I never imagined that night would unfold into one of the most terrifying experiences of my life. My name is Karen Miller. I'm 43 years old, a single mother, and I work long shifts at a small-town diner in Indiana. Life hasn't been easy, but I've always tried to stay positive. My nephew Ethan, 21 years old, has always been like the son I never had. He's studying sports medicine in college and recently started learning massage therapy as part of his training. He's hardworking, respectful, and full of ambition. It all began on a rainy Friday evening. I had been working doubles all week, running from one shift to another, my shoulders aching and my lower back stiff. When Ethan stopped by earlier that day to bring me some groceries, I casually mentioned the pain, and he immediately offered to help. "I can practice my techniques on you," he said with a smile. "It'll help you feel better, and I'll get more experience." I trusted him, without hesitation. After all, he was family. Later that night, the rain drummed steadily on the roof as Ethan set up a portable massage table he brought over. He carefully arranged everything, even placing a folded blanket to make it more comfortable. I made us both some tea, and we talked while he set up about his classes, about his professors, about his dream to open his own rehabilitation clinic someday. His voice carried excitement, and I felt proud of the young man he was becoming. When I finally lay on the table, the dim lighting and the sound of the rain created an almost soothing atmosphere. Ethan's hands worked carefully, pressing into the knots in my shoulders. The tension I had been carrying all week began to melt away. For the first 20 minutes, everything felt perfectly normal, innocent, calming, and professional. But then, the air in the room seemed to change. At first, I thought I was imagining it. Ethan's movement slowed, and his breathing became shallow. His hands, once steady and sure, began to hesitate. I lifted my head slightly. "Everything okay?" I asked. He forced a quick smile. "Yeah, I just thought I heard something." I frowned. The rain outside was heavy, but even through it, I realized I could hear it too, a faint creak in the hallway. My heart skipped. My house was locked. No one else was supposed to be inside. Ethan stopped massaging, his eyes shifting toward the sound. "Stay here," he whispered. He moved carefully toward the hallway, his footsteps barely making a sound. My pulse quickened as I sat up on the table, clutching the blanket around me. The creaking grew louder. Then, just as suddenly, it stopped. The silence that followed was unbearable. The only sound was the rain hammering against the windows and the distant rumble of thunder. Ethan returned slowly, shaking his head. "No one's there," he said, but his voice lacked conviction. I tried to laugh it off, telling myself old houses make noises in the storm, but deep down I felt unsettled. Ethan suggested we continue, but I couldn't relax anymore. Something felt wrong. Then it happened again, this time louder. A clear, deliberate step on the hardwood floor just outside the living room. Ethan and I both froze. He whispered, "Did you hear that?" Before I could respond, the lights flickered and went out, plunging the house into darkness. I gasped. Ethan immediately pulled out his phone and turned on the flashlight. The beam of light cut through the shadows, revealing the living room, the hallway, and the edges of the kitchen. Everything looked normal, but the uneasy feeling in my stomach told me otherwise. We decided to check the house together. Ethan walked ahead, holding the phone, while I followed close behind. We checked the kitchen, the back door, the laundry room. Nothing. The windows were locked, no signs of forced entry. Yet, when we stepped into the hallway, a cold draft swept past us, carrying with it the faint smell of wet earth. "Did you leave a window open?" Ethan whispered. I shook my head. No. Everything was closed. We moved toward the bedrooms. When we reached mine, the door was ajar. I knew I had left it closed. My chest tightened as Ethan pushed the door open slowly. The beam of his flashlight scanned the room, and that's when we saw it. On the floor near my dresser, a set of muddy footprints. My breath caught in my throat. They were fresh, still damp from the rain. Someone had been inside my room recently. Ethan's grip on the phone tightened. "We need to get out of here," he said firmly. We turned back toward the living room, moving quickly, But before we reached the front door, a loud crash echoed from upstairs, the sound of something heavy falling. My house only had one level. My heart nearly stopped. There was no upstairs. The noise hadn't come from above. It had come from the attic crawl space. Ethan pulled me close, whispering, "Call the police." My hand shook as I dialed 911, explaining in a trembling voice that someone was in my house. The operator told us to stay on the line and wait for officers to arrive. Minutes felt like hours. The sounds in the house grew more unsettling, soft thumps, like footsteps overhead in the attic. A scraping noise along the walls. I clutched Ethan's arm, praying for sirens. Finally, red and blue lights flashed through the rain-soaked windows. The police arrived, bursting through the door with flashlights and weapons drawn. They searched every inch of the house. When they opened the attic hatch, they found it. A small makeshift bedding area. Blankets. Empty water bottles. Food wrappers. Someone had been living in my attic. The officers told us it wasn't uncommon. Sometimes drifters or runaways found ways into houses and hid. But to know a stranger had been above me, listening, moving around while I slept at night, it sent chills through my bones. They never caught the intruder. The rain had washed away any tracks outside. For weeks after, I couldn't sleep without checking every corner of my house. Ethan stayed over several nights to make sure I felt safe. His massage had been the beginning of a night I would never forget, not because of relaxation, but because of terror. Even now, when the rain falls, I still hear those faint creaks in the hallway, as if the intruder never truly left.